Hello, welcome to a broadcast produced by Friends of Terry Virgil. I'm Terry Virgil, your host, and today's episode is based on the flat and fair tax, and I believe it should be 10% across the board for all Americans to pay the same thing. Now, just what is a flat and fair tax? A flat and fair tax is one tax, and only one tax that all Americans should be paying. We need to do a couple things. End the violation of the IRS from 1913. We need to also look at how taxation is done across the board. If you bring in a flat and fair tax, and yes, everybody keeps their income. When you go purchase something, everybody pays the same across the board. 10% is very small and very minute, but those dollars add up very fast. And believe it or not, those dollars could give you a surplus in your governments. And here's the one thing about a flat and fair tax. Flat and fair tax would be just like saying that you get a tariff or something that you want to charge other countries for buying American goods or trying to bring in American goods here. You tax them. Yes, and that keeps jobs here in America. That's simple. That's good economics. Unfortunately, there are those who oppose the flat and fair tax, and those are the ones that are called the liberals / Democrats / communists / socialists. They love to tax the living crap out of every American out there. And they love to say, okay, it's time to see what we could do and go from there. And it's time to balance the budget by taxing the poor, those that are in poverty, and those that are in middle class. If you listen to Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, mainly in the political realm, their economic policy is this: let's just tax everybody and tax everybody's income to at least 90%. Because it's going to cost 90% of your income in order to pay for what Hillary Clinton wants or what Bernie Sanders wants. Therefore, you will be in poverty no matter what. And you'll be bankrupt. You'll be poor. You'll be, even though that you're working, let's say 10 hours a day, and you make, let's say, about $15 an hour, you still don't make anything, because then they're going to be taxing you even higher. A flat and fair tax, if you put that on the commodities, and you can even call it a federal sales tax or even a state sales tax, and say this is what we're going to have to use as our income, because those that travel across the nation will have to pay the taxes. When you buy something, you got to pay that tax, 10%. It's not going to hurt. I looked and investigated this, and I looked at the idea and loved the idea of a flat and fair tax. So I'm going to promote a flat and fair tax. I believe that's what the libertarians are going to be promoting with their candidates, is a flat and fair tax. I would happen to agree with that one. I know Ted Cruz is bringing this about. Yes, he's running as a Republican, but my suspicion is that he is and should be a libertarian with this idea. This is a libertarian idea. If he took it from the libertarians, I'm not going to promote the idea that he stole it from us or not. I'm not going to say that. Let's not go that direction. Let's just say that he believes it's a good idea. I don't know where Donald Trump would stand on this. I don't know how the rest of the Republican Party stands on this. And I'm not going to speculate on how that goes. My speculation is this, that they want to go halfway like they always do when they make a claim on taxation. by cutting the taxes in half. They don't go all the way. They feel that, well, they need some of your income in order to support their ideas and how they're going to balance the budget and stuff like that. A flat and fair tax gives you a surplus. It does not give you a balanced budget. If you want a balanced budget, become an accountant or someone that's in economics and say we could fudge the paperwork and fudge the numbers this way and call it a balanced budget. You can call it everything you want in that area. You could say, well, now what about our debt? A flat and fair tax, like I said, is a surplus, so you can pay your debt off. A flat and you can run the government by paying off your debt. It's ridiculous to have a $28 trillion debt that occurred since 2008. It's ridiculous that we're running off that debt. I think the national debt, and looking at the national debt counter, should be looked at very carefully this election. The economy has got to fix itself. And if you get a flat and fair tax, that means you could get rid of half, or even you could get rid of all income tax and get rid of the IRS with the flat and fair tax. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it's going to take an act of Congress to do it. Yes, it will get delayed through Congress because, let's face it, the Democrats slash liberals slash communists slash socialists, whatever you want to call them, don't like a flat and fair tax, and because they like to steal your money. So, in all reality, let's just say that if you want to have your income in your own pocket, I would suggest that all of America pressure Congress to have a flat and fair tax and to vote it in, and to pressure the Democrats, liberals, communists, and socialists especially. You know how to do it. The area code is 242. Correction, 202. Correction, I was thinking of New York City at the time. But the area code for Washington, D.C. is 202. And if you got a computer out there, and if you're listening to this broadcast, you will have a computer, you could go to look up your United States Senator, your congressperson, and you can encourage them to bring about a flat and fair tax. Enough is enough of being taxed to death. And believe it or not, the more emails you send your congressman, the more phone calls that you send or dial up, floods the switchboards, and they have no other choice but to bring in a flat and fair tax. That's just it. Now, like I said, I'm not in favor of the Republican Party presidential candidate Ted Cruz. I'm not saying that all of his agendas and all his ideas are great. This is one where I picked out. It happens to be my most favorite one that I like the most. Matter of fact, in 2010, I introduced the flat and fair tax. And yes, I ran for governor of the great state of Wisconsin with this idea. It got rejected, and here's why. It got rejected to the point where the Republicans didn't like it, because then that cuts into their wallets. And the Democrats especially hated it because they had programs that they want to bring about that would introduce slavery and bondage to the people, where the people would have to work for the government literally just to pay their taxes, and to bring about programs that cost a fortune. the flat and fair tax, 10% across the board. Eliminate income tax totally. Here's another tax that should probably also be eliminated too. And believe it or not, it's called your property tax. You don't need to pay tax on your property. Just use a flat and fair tax to pay for everything. Let the economy develop, because you have much greater economy with a flat and fair tax. And here's another tax that should be gone. It's called a death tax. My God, people, if you're entitled to an inheritance, you don't need to pay an income tax on top of something that's already been taxed, called inheritance. You don't need to pay for that. You don't need to pay for something that does belong to you. You need to keep it. That's why I'm in favor of the flat and fair tax. This way you can keep your income. You don't need to have a special tax because you inherited money. That money's up to you. That's yours to keep. That's what it's meant for. It's meant to help you out in case when you need it. Now, the reason why the liberals and Democrats, socialists and communists hate this idea, because they can't give out entitlements. They can't give out entitlements such as food stamps, food share. They can't give out entitlements in rent, to pay rent. They can't give out entitlements to pay for foolish spending such as education. And I'm going to say it this much. What I mean about education is public education, public schools, public universities. You know what? Our founding fathers did not want public education, did not want public schools. They even mentioned that during the conventions, during their first sessions of Congress and stuff. They didn't want that. They didn't want public school education. School choice is the best way to go. And to tell you the truth, the flat and fair tax should be used not to educate, but to help fix the infrastructure here in America. And every state needs its infrastructure fixed. It costs money to fix roads. It costs money to fix railroads. It costs money to pay for your police departments. It costs money to pay for your emergency vehicles, such as ambulances and fire. It costs money to do that. Those people put their lives on the line. It costs money to provide a military to protect the United States of America. It costs money. That's where you should be sticking your money in. And if the people that don't like the idea of cutting out education, I have one thing to say. Become a good parent. Become a great parent and educate your child yourself. You're the one that had that child, not the government. You're responsible for the welfare of that child. Bring that child up in a proper and moral values. Because a flat and fair tax should help out this nation in its budget. Under Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, it does state this, that the government has got to pay all its bills before the end of the year. Has got to make sure that there is enough money in its budget and all expenditures to be paid. It's in there. Read it for yourselves. And here's the other thing too. A flat and fair tax would bring back the republic, not the democracy that the liberals, Democrats,